Hello guys, Professor here. Hope you're doing well today. So in this video we have to cover the Lux and Umbra pistol. That's a new signature weapon from Galbrena, and yeah, let's go over it and see what it offers and brings to the table for Galbrena, and if there's a good replacement for this weapon. So let's go into it. So first thing we can see is weapon looks amazing, like chef kiss, probably the best looking weapon in the game. Next thing is base stats. At level 90 it is 587 attack, which is amazing. Critical damage 48.6%. Oh, that's cool. So basically what this means is, yeah, she most likely wants to use critical rate for COD, obviously. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. It's a good stat stick. Any character can use it. It's not like Augusta's weapon, which has only 12% critical rate, so no other character can really benefit from it that much. This one is basically a good stat stick if skill is too specific. So even if you get this weapon, it's like better version of static mist. Basically, you know, it's almost the same if you don't have static mist and stuff. But again, if you want to use static mist on Mortefi, you want to have this weapon for Galbrena. But again, I think Cadenza is amazing on Mortefi. So yeah, on to the next. This is weapon skill and accession materials. So this one's gonna be standard one, phlogiston material, always the same for weapons. Then ring you get from exiles, like you can easily get these. I think you get these from Praxetus members as well, maybe. I'm not sure, but basically these are really easy to acquire. Just do some forgery challenges and you're done. Basically what this skill does, let's see. So attack is increased by 12% up to 24% for like R5. So 12% at base. Upon dealing echo skill damage, which we know Galbrena does a lot, gain 24% heavy attack damage amplification for 6 seconds. Okay, that's interesting. But let's let's continue. So upon dealing heavy attack damage, gain 24% echo skill damage amplification as well for 6 seconds. Damage amplification on each attack is capped at 24%. While both effects are active, dealing damage ignores 8% of target's death. My honest opinion on this weapon is it's a strong weapon. It's a good weapon. So basically how you do this, Galbrena's basic attack chains have separated damage type. So there's like first 3 stages are like doing heavy attack damage, then like last stage or last 2 stages are doing echo skill damage, and there's like a big diverse between echo skill damage and heavy attack damage. She's doing both simultaneously, like she's like constantly doing both damage types rapidly. So this buff will not last for 6 seconds on her, it will last entire rotation. So she's always having 24% amp on heavy attack, which is good, and 24% amp on echo skill damage amplification, which makes for Galbrena specifically this weapon is amazing, because amplifying echo skill damage is actually better, much better than heavy attack damage or any other damage type, because every other damage type can be, you know, buffed by, for example, if it's a resin skill amplification, you can also like use Carlotas and it wouldn't really make that much difference. If it's like, I don't know, basic, I mean, depends, you know, like, you know what I'm trying to say, like there's always like a good stat sticks and like alternative options. Or you can like make up with substats being more min-maxed into like heavy attack damage, resin skill damage, liberation, basic attack, and so on and so forth. But basically, echo skill damage amplification, this is rare. So this being a rare stat and you not being able to, you know, get this kind of buff, any echo skill damage bonus anywhere else, basically, it's pretty, making it pretty high value weapon for Galbrena. Next thing is 24% amplification for heavy attack. So basically how amplification works, this is a multiplier in like of already existing. This is basically like an outro skill that comes out before outro skill. So basically how this works, I do, for example, 100 damage and my damage bonus is 50%. Now I'm amplifying 100 damage by 1.5, which is like increasing the 50% of the damage, right? Times 1.5 equals 150 damage now. And now this damage is getting amplified by this effect, which is 1.24, which is 1.4. So 1.24 amplification on that damage. And now we're getting critical damage coming into place, outro skills, amplifications, and yeah. So it's first like use scaling of attack. It first goes like multiplier increase is the first one that comes into place. If there's no multiplier increase, then it's like damage that scales of attack. Then it's damage bonus that amplifies that damage. And then that amplified damage from damage bonus is now amplified by final damage amplifications, which are amp buffs, basically amplification, critical damage amplification, and outro skill amplification. So basically this is what basically how it works. So this is stronger than damage bonus because having 24% more damage bonus means that initial damage, instead of 50%, it's now 74%. So that's 1.74 multiplying on that. But that multiplied damage, instead of getting 24% more damage bonus, we're multiplying that damage again, that higher damage that is multiplied by damage bonus, by additional 24% on top. All of that is multiplied by 1.24. So this is definitely better buff, I would say, a bit stronger than some past weapons. And so yeah, attack percentage is not the best. We will like if there's like attribute damage bonus, but again, you can have everything. Galbrena, I checked her kit recently in the last video, and you should check it out if you want to know more about her kit. But basically her kit is without a doubt very broken. So that's one thing. This one is, yeah, echo skill damage amp, heavy attack damage amp by 24%. That's amazing. This weapon is obviously amazing, best in slot. And then like if you have both effects, which you will if you use it on Galbrena always, dealing damage ignores 8% of target's death. I was investigating what defense shred actually is and how it works, because I was like 8%, that should be a bit more. There should be like 20% damage. But then I found out that against mobs, this 8% def ignore is actually increasing 4.75% damage. So your damage is not even 5% higher with this. So this is not even a 5% damage increase on mobs, but on bosses, I can see it can be like double the amount. So maybe it's like 8% ignore can be up to like 9 or 10% damage bonus, damage increase, depending on, you know, boss's defense. But we don't know any boss defense so far in Wuthering Waves, but I assume they have like double, or maybe if they have like triple, like if they have like 2 or 3 times higher defense than mobs, then I would say you can say it's like 12, like 15% at max damage increase from this stat. So it's like, okay, it's like extra damage 15% damage bonus. I would say up to 15% damage bonus from this if you're fighting bosses. If it's for mobs, mobs are getting like 4.75%. Basically 4% incentive. Yeah, 4.75% damage bonus from this. So that's not a lot, but again, mobs they have less HP, so they're not really. You don't really need to min max like get the best buffs for mobs. Mobs are like they get deleted, especially for Galbrena. She'll use this weapon. She'll be the first one on the roster using this weapon, so no one else will use this weapon. Will prefer other weapons. So yeah, I would say this defense shred is only good on bosses, I would say. Otherwise, it's not even that big. Like against the mobs, you don't even need this kind of buffs, this many buffs. But again, I would say the reason why Kuro put such a low values on this, because at R5 this is like 16, but again it's like maybe potential like 30% higher damage at R5 from this stat alone. So it's like okay, but you know, I get like double the amount on every other weapon. So yeah, this defense shred, I would say it's good, it's decent, but it's not as game changing right now as it might be in the future. So Kuro might, instead of HP inflation, then might be doing some defense inflation, and in that case this weapon will become way stronger over time. So this defense ignore might not be as a big damage difference now, but in the future is more future. This weapon, it is more specific, but it is more future proof because of this stat. Because static mist cannot shred defense, cannot give any damage bonus, but this weapon can. And any weapon who can like shred defense, I'm gonna be on, that's gonna be much more valuable in a future. This is more like future, like late game, like 3.0, 4.0. We might see these stats actually being must have on new team comps, new units. So these kind of weapons who ignore defense, do not sleep on this, because yeah, right now it might be like 10%, maybe 15% at max against bosses, 15% damage bonus for Galbrena. But in the future it might be like 50-80% extra damage bonus, depending if Kuro decides to increase defense in the future, because that makes the most sense. Increasing the defense instead of HP, so these kind of weapons have more value over time, so you feel like you're getting more bang for your buck over time, instead of these weapons getting power creep. These weapons are like more specific, but in exchange they're like more future proof because defense shred. So yeah, this weapon is like more future, more long-term valuable for Galbrena specifically. But again, some other units, heavy attack, echo skill damage. I mean any unit in the game can cast heavy attack, and if it's considered heavy attack damage, which most of them are, then yeah, I think Carlotta can activate this. An echo skill damage, like use sentry construct and then immediately heavy attack and then start your rotation. I mean, yeah, like you can kind of proc this effect like a little bit, but again, it's only 6 seconds, and it like by the time you activate the heavy attack, it's gonna be like 5 or 4 seconds like of these buffs being active simultaneously. So I think this defense makes so this weapon can make Galbrena not really future, because at some point every single character at S0 is getting power creep at some point, right? But again, at baseline, I think Galbrena in 3.0 will still be hitting like a truck. In 4.0 as well, with this weapon, if they do this logic and increase defense instead of HP, Galbrena will still be strong even in 4.0 content and endgame. So I would say definitely a strong weapon for Galbrena, and if you can pull the Sig because Galbrena is a DPS, so pulling her weapon is basically making her set for future, increasing her longevity, so she's like relevant more, but she's the newest resonator, so when she reruns you can get her weapon then, so you don't have to get it day one, because basically because Galbrena is a new DPS, she's obviously gonna be so strong that this weapon will not be required for her to work, right? And there are like some other things I want to mention, like weapons. We have not really many choices. There's like almost basically a free choice is a static mist. So at max level you have 587 attacks, as same as Galbrena's weapon, 24% critical rate, like opposite of what Galbrena has. Galbrena has critical damage, this is critical rate. Gives energy regen, so Galbrena will, I mean, this is like a baseline energy regen for R1. This anyone can have R1 static mist, I think. So yeah, this weapon will be good on her for like beginning, and she will still do good damage with it. But yeah, I would say overall her weapon will be better choice, obviously, but this weapon will be good, and if you cannot get her weapon now and you rather need to save to get her weapon when she reruns, then yeah, static mist I think should not be a problem. And yeah, and you can always put Cadenza on your Mortefi if you play Mortefi on Galbrena's team, because Mortefi usually has a good speed rotation, and more Concerto is not bad. Basically, what people usually feel like, that's what I felt like for a long time, just because it has an ER, I thought like, oh, that's like so much DPS decrease, but the thing is, critical rate is not a damage increase, it's just more consistent crits. But yet again, energy regen, it will still be amazing for main stat. And then Concerto, if you have like 5 copies, which is easy because it's a 4-star weapon, it's one of the best 4-stars in the game. Use this Concerto when he procs resin skill, fast rotation, go into Galbrena and do your stuff. And if you use Lupa Mortefi Galbrena comp, you want to rotate as fast as possible because there's no sustainer on a team, and it's only raw DPS. So basically you want to rotate from your like sub DPSs and units who don't really need to take too much field time. You want to rotate as fast as possible, so you can like finish Galbrena's rotation on time, so you can proc enhanced intro skill of Lupa, so you can like rotate and make that kind of comp. So yeah, this will definitely be a good weapon for Mortefi if you only have static mist. But again, there is if you have a battle pass, I would say this is a good like low spender weapon. Critical rate and base attack, like this is like this is 4-star weapon, so this attack is not really that bad for a 4-star weapon. Critical rate 20%, not bad. Then like R1 effect is basic attack and heavy attack damage. This thing dealing basic attack or heavy attack damage, by the way, increases attack and heavy attack damage for 7 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. So basically 4 heavy attack damage hits, and then you have like higher heavy attack damage, and like 4 times this is like 8.8% attack and 8.8% heavy attack damage bonus. At max is going to be 14. Yeah, this is okay. Let me calculate. So 14 times 2, that's 28%, 28.8% attack increase, 28.8% heavy attack damage increase at R5. So 5 copies, which is 5 battle passes. And in my opinion, honestly, I can get this weapon, but in my situation, I already have Last Dance. And let's first cover this weapon. It's, in my opinion, a big skip. You can skip this weapon. If you're buying battle pass just to get this weapon, don't save your money. Especially if you're free to play, then you can just ignore this weapon. You're not gonna use it. This is okay. Any other weapon is bad. Like, do not use any other weapon. If you have static mist, you can pull Galbrena. If you have enough for Galbrena and her Sig, then pull both. So then we have Woodland Arya, which is like Chacona Sig. This one is completely garbage on Galbrena. Like, this is good, hefty crit rate. But there's one issue with this crit rate stats on your pistols. I'll explain later. Attack increase, which is inflicted erosion. This is like, so this weapon is not really a choice for her. Then we have Last Dance, and I'm gonna be honest, yeah, Galbrena doesn't do any, she does, yeah, gets a 12% attack, whopping 72% critical damage. Attack is 500, which is not the highest. I would say, because Galbrena's signature gives 48% critical damage, and basically for every one of your heavy attack damage and echo skill damage are getting amplified both by 24% each respectively. So the idea here is they're both getting amplified by 24%, but then again each one of them is only amplified by 24%. And let me tell you something, amplification, as we said before, is the final damage multiplier, right? Final damage boost, and amplifies the damage, multiplies the damage by the amount you have. So critical damage is basically a bit stronger than amplify the damage itself. So what this means, critical damage, if you know the math, 72 minus 48 equals 24. Yeah, I'm so good at math. 24%, and we already said this is the final damage amplification. You're getting 24% more critical damage, but 24% less amplification on your heavy attack and echo skill damage. I will be honest, besides defense shred, I think this weapon is completely fine. I think the damage difference, because you're losing 24% damage amp from weapon skill, but on the main stat you get 24% damage amp back. So this weapon alone already, with the main stat high critical damage, already makes sure that you're not losing too much damage buffs from your previous weapon, because your previous weapon only for heavy attack damage you only get 24% amplification, and critical damage works on every damage type, on any damage in a game. So when you crit, you'll amplify your damage by additional 24% regardless of which damage type it is. And because her Galbrena's weapon, that's basically this. Galbrena's weapon, after dealing echo skill damage, 48% from critical damage, when she crits, she will get 72% amplification on heavy attack damage and 72% amplification on echo skill damage when she activates like both of those effects, and she gets 8% defense shred. So then that's 72% amplification on those, but yet again this is a bit stronger because that amplification happens before critical damage, and so this actually amplifies that final number into what it is, so into like higher damage. So this is slightly better, I would say, and like 72% amplification on specific damage types should not be too different from 72% amplification on any damage type. So I would say if you have a Last Dance, I will try use this weapon on Galbrena, and most likely will not pull on her Sig if this weapon happens to be really good. If I put Galbrena on static mid and she does fine, and then I put on Last Dance and she does way better, because critical damage is basically a damage buff, while critical rate just makes sure you crit more, I would say Last Dance. If you're a Last Dance owner, then you're lucky, bucko. You're basically lucky, because now you have almost the best in slot weapon for Galbrena, because these have more critical damage, which is basically making up for the lack of specific amplification to each one of those damage type, heavy attack and echo skill. And you also at R1 obviously get 12% attack, so you're now losing that one also. And only thing I would say you're losing from Galbrena's weapon, it's 87 attack on a main stat, and as we can see right here, 8% defense ignore, which is like you're losing on every single one of your attacks. If you're fighting bosses, you're losing. I mean, if that defense ignore was never there, you're not losing anything. But basically, the bonus you're losing is 15% at most, at max. You're losing from this defense not being there. So you're losing like on every single hit. You're not getting extra 15% damage increase on the bosses, but yet again, you're still getting a lot of amplification from this using a critical damage, 72%. So I would say Last Dance might be similar to like Augusta Sig and Jian Sig situation, like this. As you can see right here, where is it? Yeah. So Augusta Sig does 12% critical rate at the main stat, a lot of attack, but then increased attack by 12%, casting intro skill, resistance skill increases heavy attack damage by 20% for 15 seconds. Cool. Obtaining shield, which Jian cannot do and any other character cannot do. Obtaining shield, which she does, allows heavy attack damage to ignore 7.2% of target's defense for 7 seconds, stacking up to 5 times, which is like 36% def ignore. This is 36% defense ignore, and it's like, yeah, like it can potentially be on bosses. It does 76%. I think this is like 18% damage increase. This is like 18% damage bonus on mobs. So this is like 38% damage bonus on mobs. But on someone like bosses, this becomes like slightly double. Like I would say around 70% higher damage bonus. So this is like a 90% damage bonus if you're fighting bosses. But if you're fighting mobs, then it's like 38%. So it's like if you're fighting like weaker enemies, it doesn't give that much bonus, but you don't need that much bonus anyway. But on like bosses which have more defense, you're like, it's like 2 point, but it's like 1.5, something like that, like of the final value. So I would say because it's like 5 times, yeah, you can stack this 5 times, like that's crazy. But yeah, again, I would say this is like, I think it's like 50-60%, at least 60%. So this is like whopping 80% damage increase, and you get attack percentage here, you get high attack here. Critical rate is the biggest BS I saw in this weapon. Thanks to this critical rate, this weapon is awful for any character besides Augusta. But on Augusta, this gives basically 80% heavy attack damage bonus because she does heavy attack damage like almost entire kit. So yeah, she gets a lot of buffs, but any other unit on the roster gets only 20%. So you see, it's more tailor-made, but this weapon, because it ignores the whopping 36% of target's defense, you can potentially in the future have much better mileage of this weapon. This weapon can end up giving more damage to Augusta than Verdant Summit. But then again, let's go to Verdant Summit, what I wanted to say before. This is like Augusta Sig, and this is Jian Sig, which is like 1.0, first premium signature ever released in a game. And it's like critical damage is so yeah, first Sig ever released in a game, and it buffs heavy attack. It's from Jian, but then again, it's very close to this weapon, and here's why. Critical damage, yeah, critical damage 48%, critical damage, that's good. High attack, higher base attack, decent. And then like R1 effects are like attribute damage bonus 12%, and then each time you intro skill and liberation cast increases heavy attack damage bonus by 24%, stacking it to 2 times. So basically when Augusta intros, she gets first buff for like 14 seconds, then she gets another when she casts Liberation. And now we get basically, you know, 48% heavy attack damage bonus and 12% attribute. That's basically 60% damage bonus for free. While Augusta, in order to trigger this effect, you need to obtain shields 5 times, which is like fine. Like if you playing like with Yuno, you will do this anyway. But if you're not using Yuno, if you're using someone like Mortefi, then you don't have to do these shields in order to, like, you know, do this kind of stuff. And it's like for 7 seconds, which is like you need to do exact rotation to not lose the uptime of the buff. But again, like at the cost of like having more specific rotation and being only for Augusta, you have a huge boost and basically a future-proof weapon for Augusta. But then the overall value for this weapon is like almost non-existent unless you get another Broadblade user in the future that can like obtain shields. This weapon most likely will be only for Augusta. That is why something like Verdant Summit is very good, because 60% damage bonus and like potentially 80% damage bonus on bosses is, I'm gonna be real, not really big difference. Like 20%, basically this one is basically this entire thing. And it's like this weapon gives you 60% damage increase regardless of what enemy stats are, where this weapon is defense, and defense actually depends how much damage bonus you get from defense depends on how strong and how much defense the mobs or bosses have. So it's enemy dependent stat, where this one is just raw like damage increase, and now whatever they are, you're just dealing more damage to them no matter what they have, no matter what kind of defense they have. So yeah, but in the future, if we can get the high defense bosses, this will be amazing difference. But right now, the reason why clear times are like few seconds difference with this weapon and this weapon is because mobs have less defense, so you're getting like not even 40% damage bonus on mobs, but on bosses you get like 80%. But then when you like divide them, it's like, yeah, it's like 40%, this like divided by, it's like 60% on average. You get more attack, right, on a base, so that's like slightly more damage. But this one like gives 60% on every single one of them. So every single mob, every single boss gets 60%, takes 60% more damage from using this weapon. While this one is dependent on who you're fighting. Same thing goes with this pistol. This gives you raw like critical damage, and it's like it's 24% more critical damage, basically almost. I think it's like 23.4% critical damage more, but again, it's almost as same as 24% amp on your heavy attack damage, echo skill damage. So you're not really losing almost any amplification here, because you're getting the same amount of amplification here, but instead of being in a skill, it's in a critical damage. Like that is why, like, critical damage difference between this weapon and Galbrena's signature is the reason why I think Galbrena's signature might not be as priority for her if you have Last Dance, because of high critical damage will make up for it. Maybe main attack stat will not be as beneficial, but then again, attack percentage is same. Like Galbrena's signature has 12% attack boost, this one has 12%, so that's like, again, it's like plus and minus negating each other. Like you again, like neutral here, you're not losing or gaining anything. Like here, same thing. Like for weapon effect, this makes sure this amount of critical damage makes sure her weapon effect is not really almost not changed. You still get the same amount of damage bonus from this, maybe even more, because it's a final damage amplification comes after that amplification, might be even better. So yeah, Last Dance might be amazing choice, secondary choice for Galbrena. And I would say again, because 12%, you're basically cutting 12% against 12%. Yeah, zero difference there. Critical damage basically 24% against 24% on every damage type. It's 0, neutral, no difference there. And then we have like 8% defense shred, which is like 4.70% something extra damage on every single hit, but it's like that's on mobs. On bosses might be like 10% even damage increase. And on bosses, like I will say like 8% defense based on what I saw calculations online. It's up to like 15% because I don't think bosses have like that much defense, but more so they have like maybe double or like 2.5 times defense of mobs, because like they're like bigger, stronger, like they need to have more defense, but I don't think they have abnormally more difference like in defense stat than mobs. So I think if mobs are taking 4.75 more damage with the 8% defense shred, then I think bosses, in logically enough, if we go, okay, let me use calculator, so 4.75 times 2.5 should be 11 basically around 12% higher damage every hit while your defense shred is active. So basically you're losing one echo substat by equipping this weapon instead of GALBRENA'S weapon. There you go, guys. Difference between Last Dance and GALBRENA'S signature will most likely be like, I think 5, maybe 10% damage difference at the most, at peak. But I would say with this critical damage, if you make a same build and instead of GALBRENA'S signature put this weapon, I think clear time will be like at most, if you like go all out with both of them, and at the peak skill level, at the maximum skill expression with both weapons, I think clear time difference will be 10 seconds. And I'm not even joking. Might sound exaggerating because how stacked her weapon is, but this is like 72 minus 48 is 24, and that's the final damage amplification. Because of that fact that this is the final damage amplification, what we get is that 24% amplification on any damage type is like basically the same thing. I'm not doing it for every damage type specifically, but I'm doing it for all of them. So it's like I'm losing 24 and then I'm getting 24 back. Like, I think it's fine. Attack percentage is the same. Again, only difference between Last Dance and GALBRENA'S Sig is basically the def ignore. And maybe I can say 10 seconds difference between clear time, because substats like attack percentage and stuff, like because of this base attack being 500 instead of 587, there might be extra like 2-3 seconds clear time difference, but I wouldn't really think this is like major difference. But again, like every like attack buff from Shorekeeper, Mortefi, Sub DPS, Moonlight Clouds, Rejuvenating Glow, you know, all those attack boosts are slightly weaker on a unit that has this attack on their weapon than a unit this amount of attack. So I think Static Mist will be like good enough. Will not be too falling back too much from this weapon, because I mean this is a high critical damage, but from GALBRENA'S one, yeah, you're losing 28% amplification, 12% attack, 80% defense shred, and critical damage. But if you equip Forecast, you only lose 4% critical damage, and you get critical rate back. You get all the good stuff, so you should be set. You can easily focus more on damage bonus for heavy attack and attack percentage instead of like energy regen, because you get 12.8% from R1, and if you have more cost. At this point you don't need any ER stat. But again, so that's my honest opinion. Last Dance might be close to like almost the same performance, but obviously like that defense shred and slightly higher main stat attack might be like 10 seconds difference at the maximum skill expression with both Last Dance and GALBRENA'S weapon. So yeah, for my opinion, I think Static Mist is a good choice. If you have Last Dance, most likely you can easily skip GALBRENA'S weapon, but again, I will be doing rotations. I will try to do clears and gameplay, and from my gameplay with Static Mist and the Last Dance, you will be able to see how fast she clears with one or another, right? To see like if Last Dance is a big improvement over Static Mist and you own Last Dance, then I'm gonna say it, Last Dance might be amazing choice. But again, GALBRENA'S signature skill, it's not like all shiny flowers, because the thing with GALBRENA is if she doesn't crit, this is one of the reasons why I say Shorekeeper is not as good as everyone says, because if you don't crit, then this stat does nothing if you miss crit. But if you have a good enough critical rate, which is easily obtainable with GALBRENA, and I'll show you why in a second. This critical damage is basically same as having the full kitted GALBRENA pistol, and I'll be honest, it might be like slight difference, like few seconds, but I don't think the damage drop off will be like more than 5%. So yeah, I would say yeah, overall I think GALBRENA'S weapon is amazing. Is it a must pull? Depends. If you don't have a Static Mist yet, definitely go for GALBRENA'S signature. It's far way better than this one. Static Mist is even better than this one, I would say. If you don't have Static Mist yet, go ahead, pull GALBRENA'S sig. It's gonna be strong, it's gonna be good. Especially if you don't have this, then you're at a point of the game where probably one of the newer players. If you have a lot of pulls, get GALBRENA, get her sig. It'll be wonders, because she can play with Mortefi Verina, she can play with Mortefi Shorekeeper. She can even double DPS with Spectre Rover, Havoc Rover, any other DPS in the game. It's just, she's crazy, bro. She's completely crazy. And if you're someone who has Lupa, then Lupa, Mortefi, GALBRENA will be amazing comp. And yeah, if you for some reason have Last Dance, those who have it most likely will not have to pull on GALBRENA sig, because as explained later, the only difference between these weapons is basically 87 attack, like this. This is what GALBRENA'S signature has, and this is what Last Dance has. So it's like slightly less attack, but it's like minuscule. It's like maybe like 3% less damage. But then again, this whopping critical damage will make up for it. And the attack percentage is the same bonus as this is like what GALBRENA'S sig has. This is what this sig has. So it's like same exact thing. GALBRENA'S signature has a critical damage of 48%, this one 72%, so it's like almost 24% difference, and 24% amplification for each type. Basically 24% amplification, and now you removing amplification from weapon skill and putting it into crit damage on this weapon. So it's like basically the same exact weapon, is just works slightly different, and other ones is just straightforward. So yeah, Last Dance will have maybe like 10% at most, I'm saying, because there's, logically speaking enough, following the law of physics, this weapon with these stats is basically amazing for GALBRENA, because of this critical damage is so high. The only factors that are like slightly like downsides of this weapon is like main attack stat, which is like 87 attack, like less than GALBRENA'S sig, and 8% less defense ignore, because this weapon doesn't have defense ignore. So yeah, that's like, and we already covered this, like 12% damage bonus less for GALBRENA'S weapon. So it's like not even that big of a deal. Last Dance is gonna do a lot of damage for GALBRENA. If not, if you have Static Mist, and if you're doing a lot of damage, you can save your pulls. Maybe get when you're more comfortable with the pulls, you can get with Astrates her weapon on her rerun, because GALBRENA will not go forever. She'll rerun probably in 3.1, 3.2, something like it. She's one of the newest unit. We're getting a rerun of Lupa, Zani, Most likely we'll see Phoebe down the line and maybe Cartetia, I don't know. And when Chisha releases, and so because so far we only know for Chisha, phase 2 might be like more reruns. So because of new units that rerun, that will most likely see Galbrena rerun. When Augusta, Yuno starts rerunning, then we can start expecting like Galbrena, Chuyan, and Chisha to start rerunning. Chisha is not even out yet, so yeah, you know. But again, so that's basically what I want to say about this character. I think the weapon itself is very powerful, but there is an amazing alternative. There's a static mist in a worst case scenario, and you can easily obtain it if you like play game correctly, unless you're griefing yourself. You should be pulling for 1 copy of static mist, 1 copy of Emerald of Genesis. From the beginning of the game, that should be your main focus, and you should have it by now. So 1 static mist at R1 is already amazing stat stick for Galbrena. Okay, so I finally found it. I couldn't find it before for some reason on official WUVA website, but basically this is what I was talking about. So we will have new 3-piece set for Galbrena called Flame Wings Shadow. Will be same like Nightmare Purification Field, every single day 36 echoes. So hitting with echo skill boosts heavy attack critical rate by 20% for 6 seconds. Hitting with the heavy attack boosts echo skill crit rate by 20% for 6 seconds. If both buffs are active, at the same time you also gain 16% fusion damage bonus. So basically similar way of function as her weapon. So I would say this is basically the reason why I say static mist might be a little bit off, because that's like double downing on critical rate. But yet again, if you have last dance, then you should be fine. So this set overall I would say is strong, and so should do a lot of damage with this one. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. You find it informative, interesting, and yeah, see you next time. Bye.